All right, college hoops fans, buckle up. Today we're diving headfirst into a matchup that has me seriously pumped.
Ooh, I know that tone. We're talking Memphis versus UConn.
You got it. And let me tell you, this one's got layers. We've been digging through Reddit threads, combing through betting odds, even checking out what UConn's own athletics page is saying. And let me tell you, the vibes are, well, let's just say they're mixed.
I'm intrigued. I love when the narrative doesn't quite line up with what the numbers are saying. It's like those magic eye posters. Gotta look deeper to see the full picture.
Exactly. So today's mission isn't just about predicting the winner. We're going full-on deep dive to equip you with the knowledge to be the most insightful fan in any room. You'll be dropping knowledge bombs about this game like it's nothing.
Love it. All right, set the scene for me. Where are we? When's tip-off? What's the energy like?
Okay, picture this. You're in Lahaina, Hawaii. It's Monday, November 25th. The sun's shining. It's a beautiful 2:03 in the afternoon, and you're courtside for a clash between two undefeated powerhouses.
All right, undefeated, we're saying. So what's their record so far?
Both Memphis and UConn are coming in hot at 4-0, but the energy around this matchup, like I said, it's a bit off.
Off how so? On paper, you've got two undefeated teams going head-to-head. Sounds like a recipe for excitement to me.
It should be, but if you just glanced at the betting odds, you'd think UConn was going to waltz in and dominate.
How bad are we talking?
They're favored by 8.5 points, which, given their track record, isn't totally outlandish.
Let's hear it. What kind of track record are we talking about?
19 straight wins on neutral courts, 29 moneyline wins out of their last 31, and, oh yeah, they're the reigning national champs.
Okay, so recent history is definitely on their side.
Right. But here's where things get interesting. Those hardcore UConn fans, the ones who bleed blue and white, they're not so sure about this one.
Really? You'd think they'd be riding high after last season.
You'd think so. But I was scrolling through their subreddit, and there's this surprising amount of doubt creeping in.
Huh, interesting. What are they saying? Give me the good stuff.
Some are actually predicting a Memphis upset.
Whoa, bold prediction this early in the season.
I know, right? And get this, one fan even said he's not convinced UConn will even make the tournament.
Okay, that one might be a tad dramatic. But I get it. Fans can be fickle.
For sure. But this disconnect between the hard data and the gut feeling of those diehard fans, it's got me thinking.
Right, like what are they seeing that the odds makers aren't? Or are they letting last season's success cloud their judgment?
Exactly. Is it recency bias? Are we all just caught up in the afterglow of that championship run? Or is there something about Memphis, something the data isn't capturing that has those UConn fans feeling a little uneasy?
Okay, now I'm really hooked. To figure that out, I think we need to dive deeper into each team. What's the story with Memphis this season?
Well, first off, they've got this high-scoring guard, PJ Haggerty, who's been absolutely lighting it up.
Okay, I'm listening. Give me the stats.
Averaging 22.5 points per game, shooting 50% from three-point range.
Whoa, okay, that's some serious firepower. We talking Steph Curry level accuracy here.
He's been that good. But here's the thing. This isn't the same old Memphis team that relies solely on offense.
You're telling me they've actually learned to play defense?
They have. Last year, their defense was, let's just say it wasn't their strong suit.
How bad are we talking? Bottom of the barrel.
They were ranked 103rd in the nation in defensive efficiency.
Ouch. Yeah, that's pretty rough.
But this year, they've made a massive jump all the way up to 24th.
No way. That's a huge improvement. So they've clearly been putting in the work on that end of the court.
Big time. And we saw it in their game against Belmont last week.
Remind me, how did that one go?
Memphis forced 18 turnovers and held Belmont, a team known for their offensive firepower, to just 62 points.
Okay, so they can shut teams down when they need to. That's a good sign.
It is. This Memphis team is not to be underestimated.
All right, I'm starting to see why those UConn fans might be a little nervous. But every team has weaknesses, right? What's Memphis's Achilles heel?
Turnovers.
Really? Thought you said they'd improved defensively.
They have. Defensively, they're solid. But offensively, they're ranked 272nd nationally in turnovers.
Ouch, that's got to be frustrating. And against a team like UConn, that could be a recipe for disaster.
Especially with a coach like Dan Hurley, who's known for his aggressive, in-your-face style.
Hurley, the man, the myth, the legend. Okay, so we've got those turnovers to keep an eye on. Anything else about Memphis jumping out at you from those Reddit threads?
Yeah, actually. Haggerty's knack for drawing fouls.
Interesting. How many free throws is he getting per game?
He's averaging over 7 free throw attempts per game.
And against a UConn team that can be prone to foul trouble, That could be a subtle but significant advantage for Memphis.
Right. In a close game, those extra trips to the free throw line could be the difference maker.
Okay, I'm starting to get the full picture here. Memphis is more than just a one-man show. They've got a solid defense, a go-to scorer who can get to the line, and a turnover problem that could swing things either way.
Exactly. Now, let's flip the script and talk about the Huskies.
All right, let's hear it. What's the deal with the UConn? Why are those fans so worried, despite the undefeated record? They've been cruising, no doubt. But, those whispers of doubt we talked about, there's a reason for that.
Right. Like we were saying, they haven't really faced a serious challenge yet.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Their schedule so far, let's just say it hasn't been murderer's row.
So their stats, those impressive numbers, could be a bit inflated.
Possibly.
Yeah.
This game against Memphis, this is their first real test. It's going to show us what they're truly made of.
Okay, so this is a proving ground for UConn. But even with the weak schedule, they've still got to be doing some things right. What are their strengths?
Oh, they've got strengths for sure. Their offensive rebounding, for one. They're ranked 36th in the nation, which, might not sound crazy impressive, but against a team like Memphis that relies so heavily on its guards, every missed shot becomes a potential second chance for UConn.
So it's about controlling the tempo, wearing down the opponent, making them work harder for every possession.
Exactly. It takes away Memphis's speed advantage and forces them into a half-court game, which might not be their comfort zone. Plus, if you look at UConn's two-point shooting percentage, it's through the roof.
Suggesting they're pretty dominant when they get the ball inside, huh?
You got it. That dominance in the paint could be a major headache for Memphis.
Okay, so UConn's got that inside game going for them. But what about their guard play? That seemed to be the area where some UConn fans are getting nervous, especially going up against a team with explosive guards like Memphis.
Yeah, I get it. Losing those NBA caliber guards, that's tough to replace overnight. There's definitely some uncertainty there. And those Reddit threads? They're all buzzing about Ada Mahaney and Samson Johnson not quite living up to the hype.
So is it panic time in stores?
I wouldn't hit the panic button just yet. Remember, Mahaney's a freshman. He's incredibly talented, but he's still adjusting to the speed and intensity of the college game.
So maybe this game, with all the national attention, could be a breakout moment for him.
Could be. A big performance on a big stage could do wonders for his confidence.
I like it. Sink or swim time.
Right. And don't forget about Samson Johnson. He's a year older, and while he hasn't been stuffing the stat sheet, he's shown flashes of brilliance.
So this is his chance to show what he can do when the pressure's on.
Exactly. Playing against a high-caliber backcourt like Memphis, this is a true test for him. All right, so UConn's guard play is a bit of a question mark, but there's potential there. Now, let's swing back to Memphis for a sec. We talked about their turnover problem. How do you see that playing out against UConn, especially with a coach like Dan Hurley?
Man, Hurley's intensity is legendary. Isn't he practically aiming for a technical every game?
Uh-huh. Well, he's definitely passionate,
Yeah.
and that passion translates into his team's defensive energy. They're going to be all over Memphis, pressing, trapping, forcing them to make quick decisions.
So if Memphis can't handle that pressure, those turnovers could be backbreakers.
Absolutely. UConn thrives in transition. Easy baskets off turnovers. That's their bread and butter.
So Hurley's intensity, it's not just a show, it's a strategic weapon.
100%. He knows how to exploit weaknesses, and he's not afraid to use every tool at his disposal, including, well, his own personality.
Okay, so we've got Hurley's in-your-face style versus Penny Hardaway's, well, more laid-back approach. How do you see that coaching matchup playing out?
Ooh, it's a clash of styles for sure. Both coaches know how to motivate their players, but they do it in very different ways. I think it's going to come down to who can adapt better to the flow of the game.
And make the right adjustments on the fly.
Exactly. Now, there's one more wrinkle to this matchup that I think is really fascinating from a psychology standpoint. Both teams are undefeated.
Right. Sky-high expectations all around, but one of them is about to get their first loss. Talk about pressure.
And that pressure, it can do funny things to a team. UConn, the defending champs, will they play not to lose? Or will they embrace that target on their back and play with the confidence of a team that knows they're the best?
And what about Memphis? Do they thrive as the underdog? Do they play loose and free, knowing they have nothing to lose?
These psychological battles, they play out beneath the surface, but they can have a huge impact on the game.
All right, so we've got the X's and O's, we've got the psychological factors, but let's put ourselves in the coach's shoes for a minute. If you were coaching UConn, what would be your key focus going into this game?
UConn, I'd be preaching tempo control. Don't get sucked into Memphis's chaotic style of play. Play smart, protect the ball, and exploit that size advantage inside.
Make them play UConn basketball.
Exactly. Now, if I were Penny Hardaway coaching Memphis, disrupt, disrupt, disrupt. Force turnovers, contest every shot, make UConn uncomfortable.
We're into a track meet.
Right. If Memphis can inject that chaos into the game, they have a real shot at the upset.
Okay, I'm starting to see why those UConn fans are sweating this one.
They know this game could go either way, but that's what makes it so exciting, right?
For sure. But before we send our listeners off to find a screen and watch this thriller unfold, let's zoom out for a second. Talk about the bigger picture. What does this game mean for both teams beyond just a W or an L?
For UConn, a win would be a huge statement. It would silence the doubters, solidify their status as a true national powerhouse.
A loss, though, wouldn't that raise some serious questions?
It would definitely give those doubters more fuel, make people wonder if they can repeat last year's success. Now, for Memphis, a win would be monumental.
It would put them on the map, show everyone they belong in the national conversation.
Exactly. And for recruiting, that would be huge. A loss, well, they're still a young team. It's a learning experience.
But neither team wants to lose, especially not this early in the season.
Of course not.
Right.
And that's what makes this matchup so compelling. All right, so we've covered a lot of ground. Stats, matchups, psychological battles, coaching styles, the whole 9 yards. But before we wrap things up, let's circle back to something we touched on earlier. The discrepancy between the data and the fan sentiment.
Yeah, it's weird, right? The data loves UConn, but those hardcore fans, they seem to be sensing something else.
It's like they're picking up on some hidden vulnerability, something the algorithms aren't seeing.
What do you think they're seeing? Give me your expert opinion.
I think they're seeing those subtle things, those intangible factors that don't always show up in the box score. The inexperience at certain positions, the potential for chemistry issues, maybe even a slight lack of hunger after achieving the ultimate goal last season.
So it's not just about the numbers, it's about the feeling, the vibe around the team.
Exactly. And maybe, just maybe, they're sensing that this Memphis team is more than just a scrappy underdog.
They've got the talent, the coaching, and now maybe even a little bit of that underdog magic.
Which makes this game, well, completely unpredictable. It's not just about the stats. It's about those intangible factors, those moments of brilliance, those gutsy plays that can shift the momentum in an instant.
This is why we love college basketball, man. It's a roller coaster. 2 undefeated teams, 2 paths to victory, and an outcome that's anyone's guess. All right, before we let our listeners go, we want to leave them with something to chew on, a question to ponder as they watch this game unfold.
We talked about how UConn's guard situation is, well, a bit of a question mark, and how Memphis loves to create that chaos, force those turnovers. So the question is, if you're Penny Hardaway sitting on that Memphis bench, what's your game plan?
Right. Do you go all in on trying to rattle those young UConn guards? Force those bad passes? Maybe even get one of their key players in foul trouble early?
It's tempting, right? But is that playing right into UConn's hands?
Meaning, if you're so focused on the guards, does that open up the paint for UConn's big men to dominate inside?
Exactly. It's a classic risk-reward scenario. Do you try to dictate the tempo, force UConn to play your game, even if it means taking some gambles? Or do you play a bit more conservatively, try to limit those second-chance points, maybe slow the game down a bit?
Man, that's a tough call. I can see both sides of it.
And that's what makes this coaching matchup so intriguing. It's not just about drawing up plays, it's about understanding the flow of the game, knowing when to push and when to pull back. It's chess, not checkers.
Right. It's about those in-game adjustments, those split-second decisions that can change everything.
So when you're watching this game, don't just focus on the ball. Watch those matchups. Pay attention to the substitutions. Think about what you would do if you were holding the clipboard.
Because after this deep dive, you're not just watching a game, you're analyzing it. You're practically part of the coaching staff.
Exactly. All right, so to wrap things up, let's hear from you.
We want to know what you're seeing, what insights you're picking up on. Who do you think will win this matchup and why?
Jump into the conversation on social media. Use the hashtag #DeepDiveHoops. Let's keep this debate going.
This is what it's all about, folks. The passion, the strategy, the back and forth. College basketball at its finest.
And we'll be back next week to break down all the action from this game and preview another must-watch matchup.
Until then, enjoy the game and remember, you heard it here first.